I am excited. Tennis Con has been incredible. We have one amazing coach after the next. And this is one of my personal favorites, Brent Abel from Web Tennis. Oh, I got to turn my sound down here, guys. So, but we got Brent Abel from Web Tennis, and he's the pioneer. He was one of the first ones I saw on YouTube, and I thought, man, this is really cool how this instruction's going on online. And I studied him a little bit and saw that he's also a great player. He has 7 gold balls, and he is going to teach us today about what's the right shot. So what I like about this segment is he's going to show us the right plays. He's going to show us a point, and then when things get really intense and it's the major point or decision you have to make, he's going to show us what we should do. So it's going to be interactive. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you're thinking out there. Brent, tell us about this. I love this. I've been watching this a lot.
Peter, good morning. What's going on over there? It sounds like it looks like you're having a great time.
Oh, it's the best. You know, it's pretty cool when you can just hobnob with people like Roger Federer and John Newcomb and Roy Emerson and Luke Jensen. I mean, it's a tennis paradise here.
That's good. Well, listen, first of all, congrats on the effort and all you've done to make this happen. This is really exciting. And, you know, I know all the players out there are really getting a ton of value from this, a lot of entertainment. And, yeah, today what we're going to do is, excuse me, we're going to, I've got a video that I'm going to show, and it's called What's the Right Shot? And What's the Right Shot is a video instructional format where my whole intention is to try to get players thinking first about where do you want to play a shot, as opposed to always thinking, all right, well, the game is I got to grind topspin forehand technique for the next 2 years. Well, the reality is if you know where to play the shot, whether it's singles or whether it's doubles, if you know, quote unquote, what's the right shot, lots of times you don't need super fancy technique to actually get the ball to where you want it to go. And the whole premise of what's the right shot is choosing where do I want the ball to land over there, number one, but number two, where do I want to move to next on the court? And I think a lot of players sort of give up that second part. They think, all right, well, I want to hit the ball over there. I want to hit a clean winner, an outright winner over there. And the problem is you can't tell your opponents, even if you get the perfect shot to that spot, you can't tell your opponents, hey, you got to stay where you are. You can't anticipate where I'm going. And then all of a sudden that player or that opponent is there, they make a shot, and you're now out of position. So it's really two things. Where do you want the ball to land over there, and where do you want to move to next? And where do you want to move to next is always what's the best court position. And so that's the premise of what's the right shot. I think we're up to episode about 145 right now. You know, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Web Tennis, and they're all up there for free. But yeah, I mean, are we ready to go ahead and start?
Yeah, I see.
On this?
I see people are coming on. So yeah, share your screen. And so again, what Brent's going to be doing, he's going to be sharing his screen, and what's going to happen, he's going to play a point, he's going to stop it, and then we're going to pick what's the right shot. You know, be patient with us. This is live. So he's showing a video off a live video. So sometimes it might be scratchy, but he's going to stop it at the point and explain the point. And so at least have a good still shot of what's going on. And it should be pretty clear what's going on in the point, the way Brent explains it. So I'm going to leave it to him, and I'll be looking for comments when Brent asks, what do you think we should be doing with it?
All right, Peter, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a point that was played, I don't know, a couple months ago. Practice match, yours truly with the serve. My good friend Cliff, my partner, another great buddy, George, and Jerry are the opponents in Berkeley Tennis Club, Court 9. And so first serve here, deep by a mile, right? Second serve, and again, great little chip and charge return to serve here by George. And I'm thinking now, okay, I got a transitional volley. and where is the right, what's the right shot for this transitional volley. And this is not where I'm going to stop and ask you guys to give me some feedback, but I want to kind of work through the point a little bit so that you can understand my thinking as we get to that one shot that I'm going to play, where I'm going to really pause it and ask your feedback. But again, this is a transitional volley, and I'm just thinking, what do I have to do to be able to enable my partner? And as much as I love Cliff, here he is all over the top of the net, really almost sort of running interference on where I'd like to play this first volley, which is down here to George's feet. But I've also got a sense that, George is sort of pulled over into the middle of the court. So why not try to feather it over here soft, get the ball down, and give Cliff an opportunity. And so that's really the kind of the play that I make with the first volley. I'm thinking I want the ball to land sort of on that single sideline, and I get George stretched out, and he just kind of pops up the ball to Cliff. Cliff, I mean, we all know this is the toughest shot in the game, right? This high backhand volley, it's almost an overhead. This is a brutally tough shot. And I'm sure Cliff's thinking is, I just want to get it down. Just want to get it down and kind of maintain core position. And now Jerry plays, I think, the smart shot, which is right in the middle. And I'm going to stop this ball, or I'm going to stop the point right as the ball lands. Pete, can you see this okay?
Yeah, that looks good. It actually played pretty smoothly.
Okay, so my question here is, if you are me, what's the right shot? And I want you to be thinking about, where do you want the ball to land over there, and where do you want to move to next? And so, Pete, I'm going to leave it right here for just a second, and if you get some responses, just go ahead and give me a shout out about what players are thinking. I mean, I certainly could be thinking of trying to drive it through here, but if I drive it through here and I don't get it through this spot here, then it ends up that Cliff and I are on the same side of the court, meaning this is wide open. This looks kind of open, right? And again,
yeah, it looks open.
It looks like it's open, and I could drive it over there. But again, if Jerry anticipates that and gets there, it's going to be tough for me to cover up. The other thing might be a little lob over to this corner. You're thinking that George is going to close, and the lob is always a great play when you and your partner are out of position, meaning maybe both of you guys are in the same side and you need to buy some time.
Hey, Brent, we do have an idea. Someone said they want to slice wide to the right in the alley. Slice wide to the right in the alley. That comes from Gold's Gym Tennis. We probably know them. That might be
Gold's Gym Tennis from I think it's Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Yeah.
All right, so a slice here, and let's see if we can get a little more detailed on that. Where do we want the ball to land over there? So, I mean, this is obviously the racket setup. Sure looks like a slice, so that's not a bad call. But where exactly do you want the ball to land over here? Because you've got to be thinking about that. If you don't hit a winner, where do you want to move to next?
Yeah, it's tough. I was thinking you'd probably want to retreat to the baseline.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that I'd go ahead and slice it over here and then move on back and just kind of reset the point.
That's what I'm thinking, because you're falling back, aren't you? There?
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I'm certainly not going to be able to step in and drive this thing. So that's a good call. Any other feedback on this? Let's see. We get one more. Oh, deep ad side corner, so plenty of time to recover. That comes from Kim. Thanks for mentioning that, Kim. We really want a lot of interaction. So anytime you guys see something, don't be shy. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Actually, we played this game a little bit, me and Brent, and sometimes he would show, well, I actually think this is a better shot. And then, I'm not going to argue with Brent, because he always does a great job in these points. So, and he wins a lot of matches. Well, so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good call. I mean, if you can really slice it deep, And but you got to be thinking about this. Sometimes when you bring power, when you're hitting with power, you got to be thinking about where you are in the court, because if you bring power, they get the ball right away. And just because this looks open does not mean that you can actually hit it to that spot without this opponent being able to get over there and intercept it. So if you think power here, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a chance that if he's thinking a different shot, your opponent, that would work. But if you think power, you start to rob yourself of time to be able to get back and cover up. Does that make sense, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely does. So what did you do?
All right, so are we ready for the answer?
I think we are.
Okay, so what I'm thinking here is everything that we've been talking about is I got to find a way. I'm thinking more about court position, about where I want to end up after this shot. And I'm not thinking winner. I'm not thinking that I want to drive the ball anywhere. I'm really thinking what's open, and maybe this is what Gold's Gym was thinking, is slice it into the alley. But I'm thinking slice it over there short, get it down below Jerry, so I've got some time to be able to recover, right? So we can see Jerry's point of contact is below the top of the net, right? If I played this with some power, if I'd been thinking power here, I mean, Jerry would have had the ball shoulder high probably, and really been able to, sort of drive a backhand volley over here. But I'm thinking I want to go soft and let's see. And what happens here is he goes for the drop volley, and I'm going to stop this again and ask guys, well, what do you think's the right shot? Well, I'm going for it, right? So after this shot, I'm obviously going to end up over here because maybe as a younger guy, I could have put on the brakes and stopped, but those days are long gone. So I'm looking for a spot that I think won't be covered up, right? I could go up the line. I could, if I could get to it, maybe roll it cross court, or I could maybe go in the middle. And I'm hoping that these guys are not going to anticipate my shot choice. And so I just guess the middle's going to stay open, and there you have it.
Woo! I like that. That was
and
like
the crowd goes wild, Pete. Back there,
shot. That was like a mini
tennis club. Absolutely no one around. So, so there it is.
I like that. That's good.
Let's take this point through real time, and give you a different sense of how it feels in real time. All right.
Look how far you got off the court there, man. That was some pretty good wheels. And you gave it like a little Rafa buggy whip banana there to kind of curl it past the net guy and then get into the middle. I like that.
A Rafa buggy whip banana.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so but but really all I'm thinking about here, Peter, is all I'm thinking about is I got to guess what opening these guys are going to leave. I mean, these guys could I mean, the middle always is a great choice, but they could be anticipating that as well. And sometimes you have to go to school on your opponent. I mean, if you've never played someone before, what I would do is if I was Jerry and I didn't know this guy, if I was Jerry and as I'm running for the ball, I'd show a little fake poach, somewhere to make me think before I get there, the middle might not be open. And so that might make me go up the line and Jerry's going to come back and be there. So, to me, anytime you get a ball where it's just sitting there and the opponents really need to show a little movement, kind of, dirty up the landscape, if you will, with a fake poach. And once you do that, then as I'm going, maybe I'm thinking middle here, But as I see that fake poach, which doesn't happen in this point, but it should, I might change my mind at the last second. And we know what happens when you change your mind at the last second. You know, lots of times you get an unforced error. So sometimes a fake poach right there by, say, Jerry would create that unforced error, or he might get me to change my shot choice, which would be in this case to go back up the line. He fakes, comes back, and yeah, now, you know, and if I go up the line with this shot, I mean, this thing is just the lower 40 right here. So those are some things to be thinking about, whether you're the shot maker on this or whether you're the opponent.
Okay, very cool. I like that. That was good. Do we have another point we can look at?
Oh man. Well, hold on. Why don't you go? Let me. I don't have another one loaded up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Hold on. I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna give it back to you. And is it? Let's see. Have you got it now? Have you got the screen back, Pete?
Yeah, I got the screen.
Okay. So let me, as you're chatting, and we can both chat. I'm gonna go look for another video.
Okay, I'm sorry, Brent. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. So I'm getting feedback again. What's going on there? Anyway, guys, what I was thinking too about that is Brent was making that final run at the ball. It looked to me that you know, you're always trying to figure out after the point and analyze who could have done a better job there as Brent hit that passing shot down the middle. I think maybe the guy in the white probably should have been playing closer to the middle. Would you say that's right, Brent?
Yes. I mean, because I think that, I mean, are you talking about the last
little buggy wick shot you hit up the middle? It looked to me that guy probably stayed on his side too much. Usually when you get passed down the middle, it's usually the person on the opposite side of the court, at least in my mind, what I've been taught, it's usually their, you know, you don't want to say fault, but it's usually the reason why, you know, the point breaks down there.
Right. Yeah. The one thing for him is he's got to, George, the guy that you're talking to, or talking about, he's got to, and is this sun just killing me right here? Hold on for a sec. This is what I was talking about.
All right, so he's got some sun breaking through.
Okay. He's got to, you know, he's got to figure out, am I going to be able to get there and have a shot and actually have a shot choice where I could hook it and go back cross court. And, you know, if he thinks that I can't do that, then Pete, you're absolutely right. I mean, you got to anticipate that you have got to look for the middle. But if he thinks that I can get there in time where I've got that shot choice and to that extreme where I might be able to go cross court, then absolutely he's got to cover. Let me see. Hold on for a sec here, Peter.
Sure.
Let me see if I can. One of the things about doubles especially is hold on. Why is this not coming up?
All right, Brent's looking for another shot for us. Let me just talk for a little bit while we look. I know what that's like to try and find things on the fly and then have to answer questions. So I want to talk about some points that the legends have been making at the camp this week that have really been pretty interesting and eye-opening to me. Yesterday, I was watching, and one of the things that the legends say all the time is that they feel, for the most part, even the pro players and the recreational players are playing too close to the net. Now, I myself like to play close to the net and make the other team prove that they can lob over my head, but they feel that, you know, for the most part, they like to play in the middle of the box and really take the lob away, and you know, it still gives you enough room. I'm talking about if your partner is serving, still gives you enough room to make a nice poach and get to the net strap, but also discourages the opponents from lobbing, especially, you know, everybody here at the camp pretty much is over 50 as well. So this is an over 50 event here and online, and the legends harp on most players that were playing too close to the net, and that were getting lobbed. And then another thing is then Mark Woodford was talking about the return of serve, and Mark Woodford was talking about that, hey, you want to make shots. You don't have to. We all dream of hitting like a huge crushing return to really be a great doubles returner. But what he was saying is the great thing about returning is come up, answer the question. He's like, over and over again, you want to answer the question. And then he threw up so many beautiful the backhand side. The guy would serve to him. He'd throw up these great lobs that would go right over the net person's head, and said that on big points, not many people can hit great overheads. And so to make people have to play a tough shot on a big point, especially in over, how to communicate with each other, who's going to get that ball, that it causes a lot of chaos in a big situation. And what was cool is after that morning lesson with Mark Woodford, watching the tennis, you could see that so many of the matches on big points, they were listening, they were throwing up lobs, and usually the team that was throwing up the lob was winning the point. So that was very, very interesting. Brent, do you have another point queued up for us?
Yeah, I think I'm all set. Let's see. Hold on for a sec here. All right, we're going to try this. Pete, can you see my screen?
Screen is up.
All right, hold on for a sec. All right, so let's try this. This is a little different version of QuickTime. So this is interesting what you're just talking about with the lob, Pete. So I've made the transitional shot. Let me go ahead and take this back again. My partner knows that if I serve and stay back, I can cover even right here, right? I can still cover the lob from here, right? Even though I'm moving in. And so I think my partner's thinking about that, and I kind of like him. I wouldn't say he's all over the top of the net, but he's in a pretty good net position here if Jerry decides to go ahead and drive the ball. Well, what does Jerry do? He goes ahead and plays a tough lob. But, it doesn't really put us under that much pressure because I can cover it with the transition. Now, Cliff has decided to go here, and I would say that's not the right court position choice, right? Wouldn't we like him over here? I sure would. But so again, I'm thinking, all right, well, we are literally out of position here. I got to buy some time. So the way I'm buying time here is just put up the rainbow as high as I can get it, and gives us some time. So I think that we're good here. Let me go ahead and play this in real time and see where we end up. Whoops. Hold on. Sorry, man.
Sure.
All right, what's the right shot here, Pete?
All right, so you just played that. You guys kind of reposition yourself, and now you're up there. Talk a little bit so it goes back to you.
Yeah. So what happened here is I'm kind of thinking about Jerry's shot, which was to take this lob from Cliff, and I don't quite get it because he decides to play a drop shot. And with me already up there, I just don't see that as a great shot choice. But I'm going to ask you right here, what do you think's the right shot?
Well, I'll give some thoughts, and then we'll open it up. So, I'm thinking, you could safely drive it deep. It's on your backhand side, so it's not easy to crush that at the net person there. And then if you do, you might be in some trouble there. And so you have a couple options. You could drop shot back. I think you're in a better drop shot position than he was when he first hit that drop shot. or you could kind of drive it deep at the feet. But let's see if we have anybody who's given some thoughts out there. They say,
let's, you know, if you're going to respond with some thoughts, let's do this in two parts. You know, where do you think I should make the ball land over there, and where should I move to next? You know, always have those two thoughts in mind. That you're absolutely right. I mean, if I play this shot at George, if I go ahead and just crunch it at him, you know, there's a chance that he won't be able to reflex it back. But if I do, I mean, but I shouldn't say, but if I do, if he can, I mean, if he can reflex this back, I'm stuck here. Cliff is stuck here. This thing is wide open. So I've got to be considering that if I'm going to go ahead and unload on George with a drive, then I got to think, you know, where do I want to move to next? And it could be this ball spatially is too far away from me. Balance and drive it, and then recover back over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let me read some answers because they're going up the screen. So I just want to make sure we get people's. So Jack says you should slice to the guy at the baseline. Mark Conway says drop shot. Chadwick says drop shot. Gulliver says slice in the backhand corner. Gold's Jim says Andy Murray sidewinder slice going left away in the alley. Cover your own alley and yell switch. Mark Conway says drop to the left and follow it. And Cliff covers deep. Sean says drive it to the alley corner and move to the middle. And Chadwick says I'm with Gold's Jim. All right, LOL. Okay, cool. So that's what we have.
That's good. That's good. Those are all great choices. What I liked with the last few choices is that, you know, there was a second part to about where to move to next. And, you know, Pete, so much of doubles is about good court positioning. And in this point, you know, we saw some lousy court positioning on that first lob by Cliff. And, you know, look, I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. And if that's the case, you know, you got to bail your partner out with something like what I did, which was the really high lob so we could buy some time. But to me, court positioning in doubles is really the number one key because what that does, if you and your partner both have got great court positioning, it forces your opponents to have to really only play in about 20% of the court. If they have that mindset they want to hit winners, they can only do it in about 20% of the court. So here comes my shot. It's a slice, and let's see what happens. And it's hit. Don't go out. Don't go out. Oh, man. That looked like it was on the line, Peter.
Good shot.
I'm looking at, yeah, Jerry gives it the hand. But, boy, the way he's looking at it, I don't know. So, stroke technique, right? Stroke technique. If you're going to slice this ball, and I think you're better off slicing it because rather than topping it, because I think you can get the ball there quicker than if you top it. And number two, if it's going to skid and stay low, and there it is. So whoever said go to that corner and, you know, fine, I think that's it. So, Pete, do we need another one, or are we good?
Well, I like it. If you have, I actually have something I want to bring up, like a little tip that I saw Roy Emerson give yesterday, and I can show a picture of that because I made a little like court and drew something up, and I'm going to put Roy's video there. But I really like that. Now, my one question is, you put that right on the line. Were you aiming for the line, or where were you aiming there? Can you show us where you were aiming?
I mean, I'd like to say I'm that accurate, but we all know that, you know, Fed maybe is that accurate, but the rest of us aren't. And so I'm looking much more about, you know, I don't think, no, that certainly was not my target. I mean, my target was somewhere inside that alley. And it just happens, right? It just happens that, you know, I think if you go to a bigger target rather than a really tight target, that if you're slightly off, you know, in this case, I was slightly off to my target, to my left, ball stayed in. If I'm slightly off to the right, obviously it's in. So I would go with bigger targets and just make sure you got great court positioning to follow that up. Let me see if I can find another one here, Peter.
All right, while you're finding another one, I'm going to do something that I thought was really great advice. I was watching a match with Roy Emerson, so I'm going to share my screen. And Roy wasn't playing, but what he was doing is he was coaching, and it was a point where his team was the red guys here. So hopefully you can see. I'm going to ask Matt. Matt, can you see the court there? The green court? Is it? Okay, cool. So the green court is up. So the red team is Roy's team. And this guy back here, he hit a return. It was a decent return. The guy made a nice little volley back deep. And then he threw up a really weak lob. This guy actually was a baller. He was probably the best player here this weekend, but he tended to hit like a little floater, you know, the shot you instantly regret, where it's floating to these guys. It's somewhere in the middle. You don't know who's going to take it. And this player right here that's in the red that's back, he was up in here. So he was up in here, and he was retreating back. And you could tell he kind of was just unsure of where to go and what was going to come at him. And they went at him, and he reacted late, and he missed. And then after the point, Roy was back at the fence. And one of the cool things he said, look, mate, when you're going back, just worry about your forehand side. He actually said, actually get yourself turned and ready for a forehand, so then you can lob it up. So then he can hit this lob back up. And I thought that was interesting, because he's saying your partner, he's going to move over here, and he'll have you covered. So basically taking most of the court away, and don't worry about your backhand. Your partner will cover your backhand side, and you just get ready to hit a forehand. He said that this was a play he ran all the time with the people. He won 18 Grand Slams, and he won with multiple partners. And so he would say this play worked a lot. He would tell them that, you know, hey, if we throw up a weak lob, you know, I'm going to just worry about this side of my body, so I have a much better chance of making it, rather than as you're retreating and you don't know what's going on, you're off balance, and you're worried about, is it going to be a forehand or a backhand? That reaction time's a little late. You probably miss it or throw up another weak lob. Or Revisa's thinking, hey, if I can get a nice forehand lob up, you know, then it's a lot, your chances of making the shot go up a lot more. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I thought it'd be a good time to point this out. Brent, what do you think about the great Roy Emerson and that tip?
Yeah, I mean, who's going to argue? Certainly with Emo. I like that. I mean, I just think that there are times when you cannot cover 100% of the court, and so you need to be thinking about exactly what you're talking about, Pete. Well, you know, if I get it here, this is probably my best chance to do something. And I just don't, you know, I guess I would say you can't be all things at all times. And so you kind of go with, all right, well, here's where I am. This is, you know, this is probably my best shot at it. So I like that thinking. Let me, I've got another point here, Pete, if you want to take a look at it.
Sure.
See if we can get my, here we go.
I love the what's your right shot. I watch a lot of those videos, Brent. Make sure, guys.
Are we back?
Yeah. Before you show this, Brent, I just want to tell people, go to Web Tennis's YouTube channel. He's got, I think he said 184, 185 episodes, and they're all awesome points, and they make you think. And I think the more you watch these plays, you're going to start to just, you know, do things more naturally on the court. The more you study it, even Clay Ballard, who's going to be up later, he talked about how people train is they train by just like doing little pieces, and they can start to see all these moves when you watch one piece of the next. Even compared it to a grandmaster chess player, to where they can see like 4,000 moves on the table at once, just because they've seen them so many. But they learn by studying it in small little increments. So it's a really good thing to watch. Go ahead.
You know, yeah, thanks. I mean, I think that's great. That's great stuff by Clay. And yeah, I mean, the one thing I would encourage everyone is to start to be realistic about what are the common situations in doubles, you know, especially where you're making unforced errors. And you know, if it's return to serve to your forehand like this in the deuce court, then you know what? You got to get out there and you got to, in a practice session, you got to mimic that specific match play situation. And because, you know, 99% of the shots in tennis, especially at this level, most of the time we're making unforced errors. You know, that's how we lose points, is through unforced errors. So this is a pretty nasty volley right here, lob volley. Again, Cliff with a really tough high backhand volley. Guys, in fact, let me take this back. And just, you know, you've probably heard this a gazillion times. But when you're Jerry right here, right? I mean, you're right smack dab in between the baseline and the service line. And if you volley this ball, I mean, this team, right, Cliff and myself, we got great core position. So the lob is a great a choice here, as he does. But you got to be thinking about accuracy. You don't want to just go over here with the lob, because if it's short, you're going into Cliff's overhead. So be thinking about your opponent. And if this guy's a righty, as Cliff is, then you want to lob specifically over that backhand. And if you end up short, then, you know, well, what's worst case? You know, that's worst case, and that's pretty darn good. In fact, I know some guys who actually, Pete, will take this lob and they won't lob deep. They'll actually do this where they go, all right, you're going to have to deal with this. And here we go. So I'm gonna play this slow motion. George plays the volley, I think, in a good spot. I'm trying to help out Cliff by covering, and then just try to dump it. Just dump it down and get back to the court position. And still with me on this, Pete?
Oh, yeah, it looks good.
Good. Okay. All right, here we go. Here we go. So Cliff loading up the topspin backhand, which here's one thing about the topspin backhand in this situation I don't like. Technically, what happens is the topper, usually for most of us, in this, takes us off the court, right? So we take another step away. And if you're thinking about shot choice here and then court position, well, if you're thinking about shot choice going cross court, where do you want to end up? You know, you want to end up in here, right? You don't want to be still going off the court. And that's where Cliff ends up. He hits a good shot. It's down. Peter, what's the right shot?
Whew, okay, so I'm going to take a couple of guesses, and while I'm taking some guesses, I want people to leave their right shot. And so as that ball's at your feet and the two people are at the net, you know, it looks really, really tough. It looks like it's even going to be tough for you to get it back at their feet because it's so low and they have such good core position that you'd have to be just a master touch artist to put it right back low again. That's always a good play when you're low and they're at the net. So, you know, to drive it hard is going to be tough. You'll probably just, especially if people have good hands, even if you hit it hard and your body's down, that's giving you less time to recover and they'll just smack you. So right. if they're good. So, I mean, I think you got to lob somewhere, and maybe the guy in the dark shirt, you can lob on his backhand side. I don't know. That would be my guess. But before you let us know, let's see if people are leaving answers. That's a tough one. So you start talking so people can start seeing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Your feedback is spot on, Pete, in terms of I got a ball that's obviously super low, and I'm inside the service line, and I've got opponents who are all over the net. One guy directly in front of me, well, I guess both guys are now directly in front of me because I'm in the middle of the court. But I got George, who's over on my right. He's the closest to the net. And so my thinking is who's the closest to the net? Who's the easiest to lob over? Unfortunately, George is the closest, but he's also 6 feet 5 inches tall. So that kind of gets into your thinking too. And frankly, I don't remember what I did with the shot. So this is going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. My thinking is that, like you said, there's nothing available where I can get the ball over the net and down to their feet. So I'm thinking I should be lobbing somewhere over to that corner. And that does a couple things. Number one, it doesn't set them up. But number two, it gives us time to recover as a team, court position. And so have we got anything coming in on some feedback on this shot choice?
We have some people saying, first of all, that's a tough one. And then lob to the back corner, ad court. You could try and lob that, I suppose. It's a tough lob, but anything else seems to be tougher than playing flick it, deuce alley. So flick to the deuce alley. So a couple different ones.
Okay. Let me throw this out there to you. What grip do you think we need in this situation, Peter?
I think you got to have continental grip.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the obvious answer, but I think players right now are so away from the continental in terms of, a lot of players are being taught the forehand groundy, semi to full Western, and then maybe an Eastern backhand. But if you look at the shots in doubles, most of the shots played should be played with a continental grip, right? I mean, you've got serve, you got overhead, you got volleys, you got transitional shots, you've got this kind of a situation. So, this is off topic, but I just want to encourage players, if you're not comfortable with a continental grip and you're playing a lot of doubles, you're forcing yourself into shot choices that are not the shot choice that you want. So, little off topic, but just but there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, and let's see what we get. And there goes the lob.
Ahead.
There goes the lob. All right. So, and come on, baby, stay in. Now, I kind of like what is happening here with Cliff, right? Cliff is already anticipating a lob. And if you think about it, who's got the overhead in the middle between the two of us? Well, it's Cliff. So if the lob ends up like right here and I don't have time to get over and play an overhead where I then have to choose a backhand, I'd much rather have Cliff come over on my side a few feet and take care of it. That's just the way we're setting this up. And let's see what happens here. Again, I cannot remember this point. All right, I've got the overhead. Guys, let me take this back here, if you don't mind, Pete. I want to show you something on George. All right, so the lob goes over George, and what I want you to do, if you're George, you know Jerry is looking at this ball. He's probably going to lob, and what I want you thinking about is turning your body in a way so you don't lose sight of what Jerry's doing, because it could be that he can barely get there and he puts up a real short lob, and you don't want to be caught where George is. George decides to turn what I think is the wrong way, and now he loses, right? He loses sight of what's going on. So I'd much rather have you turn the other way, and then that way you're really tracking the whole point and not losing sight of the ball. So here's the overhead. I don't feel like I'm up close enough to do a lot of damage, and but I'm wrong. Right? I get the ball right down to George's feet, and it ends up being a winner. But that's not my intention, right? I mean, what's my intention here, Peter? Hold on for a second. Let me take it back. boy, this is super slow. I'm going to take, I'm thinking from this court position right here, I'm thinking two things. Number one, where do I want the ball to land? And where do I want to move to next? And in this case, I'm just choosing, I want to go down to the feet, and I want to move in case it gets popped up. And so there you have it.
Very cool. And an interesting point too, I know I watched another What's the Right Shot, and you were talking about this, you had this one epic point where there was this, like, all these lobs and overheads, and,
yes.
and you were saying, what's the biggest mistake of the point? Even though the point looked great, everybody looked like they were playing great tennis, but you were kind of saying, well, the point really shouldn't have been as good because we're looking like rock star lobbers because they're hitting every overhead, service line, between the service line and the net. None are getting beyond the service line. And so it's allowing even though the overheads look great, it's allowing you guys to look like all-star lobbers.
Yeah. So I think sometimes, especially with short overheads, we think, well, we have to put the ball away. And anytime you start thinking that you've got to hit an outright winner, you put too much pressure on yourself because, like we said way in the beginning today, Pete, you can't force your opponents to stay where they are. They can always anticipate. They can always guess where you're going to go. So to create a more difficult situation for your opponents with that overhead is you at least have got to place them deeper. All right. We think about middle a lot. We think about angles a lot, but you got to get the ball a little deeper, because if you keep hitting your overheads big, hard inside the service line over there, the bounce just eats up any power. And, unless you're right on top of the net where you might be able to bounce it over, and none of those, none of the overheads from the point that you're referring to had that situation. Most of the lobs were, right around the service line, maybe just inside. So, my target on that overhead is not a spot over there on my opponent's side of the court, because too often when we think about a spot on your side of the court is we end up hitting the ball down too much, and invariably what happens is it doesn't go deep. It lands inside that service line, rather than thinking of what's the height over the top of the net that I want my overhead to travel through. And typically what happens is if you start thinking of your target as a spot over the top of the net, kind of like the backboard, right? We have a white line. And all we think about when we're on the backboard, I just want to get the ball over the white line. Well, the net strap is that white line as if it's a backboard. And start thinking of your target more. What's the height I want over the top of the net that equates to the depth? And so for me, that works. And for my students, I just think that they're more consistent with depth when they think about height over the top of the net.
Yeah, I love the height over the net. Lots of times we're thinking about hitting a spot on the court, like you said, and then we got frustrated because we can't hit the spot. And it is so much easier to hit your spots when you're thinking about, well, what's the height the ball needs to be going over the net to hit the spot? If I want to hit the ball shorter, let's say I want to hit a slice short, like that Federer slice that's so classic, to where he hits it a little short angle and he actually brings people in on purpose, or he's giving them a decision, like, are you going to approach or are you going to retreat? And if I get any kind of forehand, it's good night, Irene. I'm going to hit it to the wide open court. And so if you're trying to hit that spot, you might be frustrated. You might not be hitting it. But if you're like, okay, well, to hit this shot, I need to hit this ball lower over the net, and I'm hitting it lower over the net and cross court, well, now it's a lot easier to make that happen. Maybe that bounce and skid around the service line. And if you're trying to hit the ball deep because you don't want to give up short balls, you're playing somebody that every time you give them a short ball, they just are crushing you. Well, then, aiming higher over the net, you pick that height where the ball is going to land in. It's pretty good. It reminds me of something that Nick Saviano said one time when he warms up and he has his kids warm up. He always tells himself to say in their mind as they're hitting it, over the net and in. And I've done that, and I have gotten in the zone so quick with that.
I think that's a great thing to think about in the warm up, in terms of, every time you look at a ball, you're just about to make contact. Think about over the top of the net. And the one thing that Tom Stowe taught us way back in the day in the warm up was warm up in the short court, but make sure you're not just standing rooted in one spot and chatting away and sort of reaching out for balls, and balls get played at you, and you sort of, play this thing where that's not how we want to play. And when you warm up, if you warm up that way, your brain starts thinking, well, geez, this is how I play. I reach out for balls and I play balls in here. In the warm-up, you've got to get your feet moving. You've got to get that spacing, the spatial distance away from the path of that incoming ball over and over and over again. Even though you're just tapping the balls back in warm-up, the key is to work on spacing. And you can still chat away if you want, be a little social, but I like what you just suggested with what Nick said. So I'm going to now incorporate those two things, which is the spacing, but always making sure that I'm tapping at a certain height over the top of the net. And then when you go back to the baseline, your brain is now thinking, hey, footwork, number one, is the most important thing. Because if you don't have spacing consistently to the path of that incoming ball, no matter what shot's being hit to you, then all the stroke technique you've worked on becomes improv. You're having to improv the whole time. You're having to improvise the whole time. And once we have to improvise the stroke technique, man, the chances of being inconsistent as a shot maker go way up. So this is way off topic, but for me in doubles, in terms of shot choice, when you're transitioning in, boy, that whole split step effort there, the whole effort is to get the right spatial distance away from the path of that incoming ball, so that stroke technique can be super simple.
Okay, I love that. We're going to end there. Be back on your point. All right, so you're listening right now, guys, to a guy who's won 7 national gold balls, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, and I'm a little ticked off because it's been a year and a half since my 7th, and I'm hungry. I'm eager. In fact, I get a new age group this year, Peter, starting in January. I go in the 70s, which is a frightful number, but I cannot wait. I mean, I'm so worked up and ready to go.
All right, but see, that's perfect. Okay, he's going in the 70s, and so many people that I teach on court, where they are 10 years old, 50, they miss a shot. The first place they look is always the racket, and they want it to be the racket's fault or their stroke technique's fault. That's what they want, because that's what they're interested in. They're interested in their cool racket. They're interested in, well, show me the right technique again. When most of the time when you miss, the first place you should look, do this. The first check off is start checking yourself off from the feet up. And 90% of the time, all you need to do is look at your feet. And that's why you missed. And here you're having a guy about to play this who's, if you want to win like Brent wins, then you got to start looking at your feet. You got to start put a premium on footwork. You can't say, well, I'm over 50. I can't move the way I used to. So, I got to work more on my technique. You hear a guy who's ready to go in the 70s, who's pumped up about it, and he's saying, it's the feet, baby. And Roy Emerson will tell you before you go out and play a match, he said it to me, and he said it to another guy this morning. He's getting ready to go out there, and Roy says, flat to the boards as soon as you go out and play, meaning that when you go out and you hit your first ball and warm up, you're intense, you're ready to go. And John Newcomb, in a separate interview, when these two were not together talking about it, so it's not like it was a conversation going back and forth, John Newcomb told me Roy Emerson played the first 3 games as his life depended on it. And there were so many matches that he played against Roy where he was always down 3-0.
Wow. That's great. Well, look, no, you're absolutely right. The footwork's not happening, then it's not like golf. I mean, golf, the ball's sitting there, and you get to kind of, walk on up to get the right spacing, the right spatial distance away from that stationary ball that you want. Well, we don't have that luxury in tennis. And, the golfers don't stand right behind the ball and try to improvise a swing. They get to set up exactly the way. So the more consistent you are with your spacing, and that all starts with footwork, and footwork all starts with fitness, and fitness all starts with the kitchen. I mean, if you don't get all these things right, then all the stroke technique that you work on with the ball machine, which to me is crazy because we sit there in the ball machine and the ball places the ball right there perfectly every time, and you're working on that semi-Western, forehand, and you're not moving your feet, and you're grooving a shot that once every 500 shots happens in a match, where you actually get to stand there and then play that one forehand. So the whole thing with footwork is just not emphasized enough in terms of you got to consistently get your body into the right hitting position as often as possible so that you can make stroke technique super simple and not improvise. And once you get the spacing consistently and stroke technique becomes simple, that's when you start to groove your shots. That's when you start to build confidence. And but it gets back to footwork, Peter. You're absolutely dead on that. Completely right. And the fitness component, I don't care how old you are. You're right. I go in the 70s next year, and I feel like my job as a senior player is to go just outwork everybody. Just to outwork them in the fitness. I'm not going to go out there and hit a million cross-court balls. I mean, I might hit a lot in terms of drilling so that I can use it as a fitness opportunity. But that whole time, all I'm thinking about is spacing. I'm not thinking about swing technique. And look, let's be honest. Most of us, even the players who are 3.5, 3.0, stroke technique, if we put you in the right spot, underhand feed you a ball where there's no footwork, most players can make the shots consistently. So your job is to get yourself so fit that you can put yourself over and over again in that right spot. So whatever stroke technique you've got, that you can go ahead and be consistent. And once you can do that, man, that was, you really start becoming a better player and having a lot more fun out there.
That's very cool. Our next segment, which is going to go up, might go up a couple minutes late, guys, so we're supposed to start at 10:15. The next segment is actually, it's been pre-recorded. It's really, really high quality. The video is awesome. And it's a perfect thing the way we're finishing this, Brent, because it's going to be Jan Ozul on dynamic footwork. So it's helping you, if you've lost a step or two, it's helping you move your feet more efficiently. It's actually having to take less steps to get to the ball. And so now that we are getting up there and we're losing steps, it's all about, our technique with our feet too. Now, Brent, when we take off, I want people to train and study with you more. What can we do? Where can we find you? And the link will be right under this video when it's up there permanently.
Well, first of all, Pete, great job. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed this, and hope we put a couple of value bombs out there today for your players. Yeah, just go to webtennis, webtennis.com, and what I'm going to give you is a course, is my topspin second serve course. And one of the great terms in tennis is you're only as good as your second serve, and it's true. I mean, I could say you're only as good as your second serve, and you're only as good as your return to serve, and your forehand, your backhand, blah blah blah, all the way down. But you got to really make sure that you've got a high-quality topspin serve so that, number one, you eliminate double faults. Never going to be 100%, but you really eliminate as many double faults as possible. And then secondly, that you get that second serve in where it's just not sitting up on a tee for the returner, neither singles or doubles to take advantage of. And so there's really three components to that topspin second serve that everyone's got to have. I mean, it's really the foundation for how do you create that topspin, that up spin that creates a safety over the top of the net, gets it back down inside the service line, but has got what I call the power bounce. I'm not saying it's a kicker. You can develop a kicker out of it, but you've got to at least be able to get the ball up and out of that return to strike zone. And if you go to webtennis.com, I'll give you that course for free. All you got to do is put in your first name and email address. I promise not to spam you, and you'll get immediate access to that course.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, thank you so much for today. That was a lot of fun, a lot of value, and make sure you go to Web Tennis. Get that free course. Check out Brent's What's the Right Shot on his YouTube channel. He's got like 180 of them, and they're all very interesting. And you'll be thought-provoking. So when you go out there in the court, you'll be in a position like, oh, yeah, this is the shot. This is the right shot. So good stuff, Brent. And we're going to stop the broadcast and get on to our next topic, which is footwork. So it's perfect that we ended this way.